The government just told Americans to eat more red meat and more butter. Cardiologists are furious. The internet is celebrating. And by the end of this video, you will understand which side the evidence actually supports. In January, the new dietary guidelines flipped the food pyramid. Animal proteins, fats, and full-fat dairy moved to the top. Whole grains dropped to the bottom. The official website proclaimed, "We are ending the war on protein." This reversed decades of guidance. Since the 1980s, Americans were told to limit saturated fat and replace butter with plant oils. That advice shaped school lunches, military meals, and hospital food nationwide. It became gospel. So why reverse it now? The argument is straightforward. Ultra-processed foods loaded with seed oils and refined carbs have made Americans sicker than ever. Obesity has tripled since the original pyramid came out. Heart disease is still the #1 killer in America. Officials argued the old approach clearly was not working, and something fundamental had to change. And honestly, that critique has real merit. The low-fat era gave us Snackwell cookies and fat-free yogurt loaded with sugar. Food companies stripped the fat and replaced it with sweeteners. Nobody got healthier from that swap. The FDA commissioner stated on CNN that the old guidelines had about half the protein people actually need. He said the old corrupt food pyramid created a generation of kids low in protein, struggling with muscle mass, and addicted to ultra-processed foods. But here is where it gets complicated. The new guidelines quietly kept the 10% cap on saturated fat calories. That directly contradicts the emphasis on red meat and butter. You cannot eat a large steak prominently featured on the new pyramid and stay under 10% saturated fat. Independent fact checkers reviewed the claims and found that most Americans already meet the old protein targets. The average intake was never deficient. The framing of a protein crisis was misleading. Alice Lichtenstein, a senior scientist at the Tufts University Nutrition Research Center, was blunt. She said she knows of no evidence that increasing saturated fat in the diet would be beneficial. Plant sources are consistently better for getting your fats. Cardiologists on CNN confirmed that decades of research definitively link saturated fats like butter, beef tallow, and processed meat to higher cardiovascular mortality. That evidence base is enormous and has not changed. More recent research also links saturated fats to increased insulin resistance. That is a precursor to type 2 diabetes and obesity-associated heart disease. So the problem extends beyond cholesterol. Wait, the guidelines say eat more meat, but keep saturated fat under 10%? Those two things do not live in the same house. Now here's another layer. A study found that not all saturated fats behave the same way in the body. Palmitic acid and stearic acid-rich fats, when consumed in normal dietary amounts, did not appear to raise short-term heart disease risk factors. This is not blanket permission, but it does add nuance. This matters because the real question should not be saturated fat yes or no. It should be which fats, in what amounts, and replacing what. A steak replacing a bag of chips is different from a steak replacing grilled salmon. The advisory committee for the new guidelines voted to partially or fully omit most previous recommendations encouraging replacement of saturated fat with plant-based unsaturated fat. That is a major departure from scientific consensus, and it raised alarms across the nutrition research community. Critics from food policy groups argued the guidelines are trying to reconcile several incompatible goals at once. They want to promote whole foods and also protect the meat industry. They want to reduce processed food, but also keep processed cheese on the approved list. Let me put it differently. Both sides hold a kernel of truth and a pile of oversimplification. The real enemy was never fat or nice carbs by themselves. A cardiologist writing in The Hill explained that the strongest evidence points to eating real, minimally processed food. When people cut ultra-processed food from their diet, they naturally eat less, choose more vegetables, and see improvement in metabolic markers. Bristol University confirmed this in a controlled study. People who switched to a fully unprocessed diet naturally loaded their plates with fruits and vegetables. They cut 330 calories per day without trying or even tracking. That finding is powerful because it suggests the body has its own nutritional intelligence. Give it real food, and it naturally calibrates intake. Give it engineered food, and that system breaks down. So where does that leave us on saturated fat? Specifically, the Mediterranean diet, long considered the gold standard, includes moderate amounts of cheese and meat, but emphasizes olive oil, fish, nuts, and legumes as primary fat sources. It consistently outperforms both low-fat and high-fat extremes in long-term studies. The pattern across all the evidence is remarkably consistent. Whole foods beat processed foods, plant fats beat animal fats on average, but moderate amounts of quality animal products are not the enemy. The dose and the context make the poison. So who is right in the saturated fat war? Neither extreme. The old pyramid feared fat too much. The new one, cozy with industry. The actual science says eat real food, favor plants for your fats. Enjoy meat in moderation and stop buying anything with 30 ingredients you cannot pronounce. Which side do you fall on? Drop it in the comments. If this helped you see the fat debate more clearly, subscribe so you do not miss the next deep dive.